Still reveling in the Saints' big win Sunday in their home finale? Or are you focused solely on the future? Are you looking for a change? Or one of those who wants to hold on to the past? In studio today, we'll talk to a columnist who lives in the now and wrote some things last weekend that shook up the city just a bit. Whether you like it or not, the first of a two-part Black and Gold Today is up next. Welcome to the Black and Gold Today, sponsored by Cadillac of New Orleans. I'm Jim Derry. As the Saints come off of one of their finest overall performances of the season in a convincing win over Jacksonville on Sunday, it means nothing about the uncertain future and what big changes are in store for the offseason. And if we know anything, we know people around the Big Easy aren't usually fond of change. But that's what NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune sports columnist Jeff Duncan asked for this weekend in an open letter to Saints and Pelicans owner Tom Benson, when Jeff asked the man who saved both major professional franchises from leaving the city to sell the team. He's in studio now for the first ever two-part Black and Gold Today. And Dunk, got any email?
Yeah, I got a few. A lot of reaction, as we all anticipated this story would have, a big impact. Obviously, the Saints and Pelicans, people are very passionate about both those franchises. New Orleanians in general are passionate people, and anytime you start talking about the future of the franchises, you're going to get the reaction that we got.
Well, it's interesting because we talked offset about, what we saw publicly was a lot of negative reaction, but you also got a lot of positive feedback as well, and I would imagine that you did.
Oh yeah, there's no question. I think it's a worthy discussion topic, and that's all we're trying to do with the piece was put out into the public forum the future options that we may have with the Saints and Pelicans. Tom Benson's no secret. He's 88 years old. He's involved in what could be a protracted legal fight with his estranged heirs, and his succession plan right now, while I think is admirable to leave the team to his wife Gail and to the board of directors, I think it's worth challenging. Is this the best option long term for the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans? That's all. Would it be better than having a local ownership group and maybe potentially Tom Benson just cutting ties completely because of how entangled that legal situation is? I think it could be messy, and I think it could be very protracted.
One important question to answer, and I've gotten a lot of this questions from friends and people who know I work for the paper. Why did you decide to write this?
Because I think it's the timing right now before these legal fights begin in the offseason. The fact that Tom Benson's 88, and the fact that just a year ago at this time is when he basically excommunicated his family members and changed his original succession plan. And I think a year later, when all that news hit, and that was huge news here in the city, I think everybody initially was like, oh my gosh, this is huge news. At least we're going to keep the team here. And I think a year later, it's a good time to look at it and say, is this really going to be the best thing for the city, having this team run the way he's proposing to run it going forward? Or would it be better to consider, maybe some other options, local ownership? I mentioned the Mannings involved because they've been mentioned with other franchises, especially the one in Nashville. I know a group of local investors that have interest in potentially buying the team and keeping it here. And I think that's the most important thing that people need to realize is that this team's not going anywhere no matter who owns the team. There's a deep-seated fear in New Orleans, and justifiably so, that the team might relocate, that some outside owner would buy it and move it. And I understand that because there's been years and years of threats for relocation. Right. But that's not going to be the case here. This is a different market now than it was a decade ago, and the Saints situation, their lease agreement with the state, is so favorable for the teams that no owner would even think about moving the team.
Talk about the process of, obviously, Mr. Benson had an interesting reaction after the column, but he knew about this before it ran.
Yes. I had conversations with Greg Bensel, the Saints Vice President of Communications, about the column beforehand, and I think I was actually a little surprised at the statement that was released yesterday on Sunday after the game. That was a little surprising to me. Didn't really challenge anything in the column. There were some things that they called inaccuracies. I can assure you there was nothing inaccurate in that column factually at all, and the Saints know that. But I was surprised at the negativity, because there's no criticism at all of Tom Benson. I don't have any criticism of his ownership, what he's done in the last year. He's raised the standards and I think done an admirable job, and he's given millions to the community. I just think it's in the best interest of the city and the organizations to consider other options besides what they have proposed.
We're going to skip the extra point today, and we will be right back after this with another question for Mr. Duncan.
What's one of the nicest things that comes with your new Cadillac from Cadillac of New Orleans? 0% interest.
Get 0% interest on all new Cadillacs, now at Cadillac of New Orleans. New owners, new attitude, on Lime Street in Rye in Metairie.
Dunk, what do you want people to take out of what you wrote?
Well, I want people to maybe look at other options that possibly could be in place for the best long-term stability and success of the franchise. That's it. If the best answer right now is for the team to go forward and have Gail Benson run the team and a board of directors, and that's the best way for these teams to be successful going forward, I'm all for it. I think that's what should be our primary interest. But it's certainly worthy of considering potentially another option, potentially another group of local business owners to run the team, because unfortunately the tragedy that Tom Benson's had in his family and the ugly conflict that's transpired, there is no real, I think, viable succession plan right now, at least the one he originally planned. And I think that is what's caused the timing of this to lead us to this discussion.
Well, we are going to finish our two-part conversation with Jeff Duncan about the column. We'll do that on Tuesday. You'll have to come back and join us then. See you tomorrow for another edition of Black and Gold Today.